Are you an atheist who typed into YouTube atheist sort by new and then you found this random guy who's actually not an atheist? Is that what just happened? Yes, it is. Or were you just minding your own business on YouTube and then suggested videos, this guy who's not an atheist, you watch his video anyway? Is that what happened? Yes, either the first thing or the second thing, one of those two things that happened. Here's what we're going to sort out right now. So what I do is I make these videos for atheists, even though I'm not one. I refuse to debate atheists because it's pointless. And I know that. You can't prove that God doesn't exist. I can't prove to you right now, right here, that he does. Pointless, boring, hashtag yawn. But I think it's interesting to talk about these things and have these conversations without it being a debate. Really, the way I like to word it is to understand the collective culture of atheists. Even though they have no leader or defined culture, ultimately when you make a video on YouTube and you have easily 100 views every time you make a video, the comment section basically presents itself as some form of a culture in itself. Some sort of sampling is really what I'm wanting to say here. So I think about these topics and I write them down in sticky notes, and this is one I wrote down this week. And oh, here it is. In the topic, it says, are atheists more likely to commit suicide? I was just thinking about that because there's a couple of different reasons. There's a movie that maybe 5 of you have seen. It's not popular. It's on Netflix. It's a Netflix original. Jason Segel, who plays in one of my favorite movies ever, I Love You Man. He was in a Netflix movie called The Discovery. And in this movie, they were able to find what happens to people's consciousness after their physical body died. And they were able to, and this is the preview, I'm not giving the movie away. They were able to determine that yes, your consciousness does live on. So that what they were trying to do is like find cameras to be able to record this and find out, well, what are they experiencing since their consciousness is going somewhere and something's happening to it. So when this discovery, that's the name of the movie, The Discovery, when the discovery was announced, people across the world started committing suicide because they, I guess, realized, well, I'm still gonna be alive after this and there's something after this, and I guess I don't like the life I have, I'm just gonna kill myself. And so this movie is about mass suicide due to the concept of that there is an afterlife. But I thought, what about the opposite though? What if we knew for a fact there's no afterlife? Because see, what you'll see atheists say, like Bionic Dance is one, for example. She watches most of my atheist videos and comments on them. And something you'll see in her language, she will say, I know for a fact that there is no God. She's one of those kind of atheists. And she'll specifically say that what I believe is falsehood. How can anybody say that Christianity is falsehood? We can't prove that. And people will say, well, yeah, but you could say you can't prove that there's not microscopic little fairies flying around in on little. Yeah, there's a lot of things you can't prove, but you can't say things are false based on it. But let's assume that somehow we could prove that there is no God. We could prove that, which again, always will be impossible. There's no way to ever prove that there's not a God. So with that being said, if that's really how atheists felt, and they believe that consciousness does not transcend their physical body, I maybe think, well, then does that mean that there's more suicides that take place from atheists? Are atheists in general more likely to commit suicide? Because a statistic that I already know about suicide, and I think we all know this, men are much more likely to not only commit suicide, but to be successful in it. Because when men commit suicide, they don't play around. I mean, we're talking about shotgun to the head, we're talking about jumping off a bridge and a long fall, whether it's, because the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco is one of the most popular destinations for suicides. I've been across it a few times, and they actually have these phones, like suicide prevention lines that you call if you're thinking about committing suicide, like stop, call us first before you jump kind of thing. So men are much more violent when they attempt to commit suicide, whether it's a weapon like a gun or like I said, jumping off of a bridge or a mountain or whatever it is, bluff. Whereas women are more likely to cut their wrist or overdose, but it's not as successful as a shotgun to the head, right? So men are more successful at suicide. Men are more likely to commit suicide. And here's the new demographic. Men are more likely to be atheists than females. How do I know that? Because I read the comment section of my videos. It's very rare that I have female atheists commenting on my videos. I have noticed this though, and I guess this is its own separate video that I'll make. What's interesting is the females that have, the female atheists that have watched my videos and commented without me asking or opening the door, they themselves announce that they're gay. So I think that's interesting, that demographically, atheists are more likely to be men, and the females that are atheists are more likely to be gay, and announce it in the comments without me even asking. So I think that's interesting. I think that's a separate video. But so I started thinking about this. So by default, are atheists more likely to commit suicide? Most are male. And if you already believe that there's no afterlife, the way you live your life has no results after you die, then why not? Please no, I'm not wanting anyone to commit suicide, but I'm trying to think like an atheist is what I'm trying to do. And maybe I'm failing, but I'm trying to think of, because for the rest of us, those who are a Christian or people who are at least agnostic. There's this one comedian, female comedian I saw on YouTube. She says, I'm an agnostic. I don't believe in God. Well, don't tell him I said that. I think that's a good way to kind of summarize a lot of it, whether they're atheists or whether they're agnostics or whether they're just kind of generically, I believe in God, the kind of theist situation, just because culturally everyone else in their nation is. Most people still have some kind of thought that there is a life after this. And if there's life after this, that it's connected to how we live this life. Even if it's not Christian. I mean, there's concept of reincarnation, with Buddhists, that how you live this life determines what happens next. And the same thing with Hindus, they want to eat cows because they come back to the cow. So many religions believe this. Your afterlife is largely connected to how you act in this life. But if you truly believed in your heart that nothing happens after you die, that consciousness ceases to exist, you no longer exist in any form or fashion after you die, I could see how it would be more tempting if you didn't like your life already to say, okay, well, none of this matters anyway. Once I do this, I'm done. So I was thinking about all of this, and I thought, wait, before I hit record and start making this video, let me just Google this. Are atheists more likely to commit suicide? And this is what happened. And this is a legitimate source. I don't think anyone's really going to argue with the Huffington Post. They have an article right here. Atheism has a suicide problem. And it's the opening line says, depression is a serious problem within the greater atheist community. And notice how they use the word atheist community, something I say all the time, and atheists don't like it when I say that. And far too often that depression has led to a suicide. So Google that article if you want to check it out. Again, it's Atheist Has a Suicide Problem. It's the Huffington Post. The author is Stax Rosh, if I'm saying his name right. And this is not an old article. This was December 8th, 2017. So, it's about a year and a half old. And I think that's interesting. I think it's interesting that this hasn't actually come up yet. I think it's interesting that I'm the one to actually bring this up. And I think part of what made me think about it too is this. I openly say to people in the comment section and in my videos, where there's some atheists who are like, I know that atheism is the right perspective. I know that Christianity is wrong. I know that it's a lie. As a Christian, I'm not here to flip that. I'm not here to say, I know that atheists are definitely wrong and I know that I'm definitely right. For me, it's I choose to believe, period. I choose to believe. I do believe. But ultimately, I don't see how any Christian can get around Pascal's wager at some point, knowing that faith is believing in something you can't see and can't be proven. Ultimately, some part of you has to say, I may be wrong, but yet I choose to believe anyway. And so I was thinking about that, and that just kind of led me to this whole thought process that there are atheists who truly believe so strongly that there definitely is nothing after this. More so than, because I think what happens is, by default, if you're an atheist, okay, I don't believe in God, but specifically, typically, in general, atheists don't believe in an afterlife. Most. See, that's atheist culture. In general, atheists do not believe in afterlife. And if they do, I've yet to meet an atheist who believed that their life on this earth had any consequences in any kind of life after this. I've yet to hear that from one atheist. And if I did, I wouldn't care or be surprised, because there's always an exception to the rule. Is anyone willing to talk about this further? I'm 100% against anyone committing suicide. I want to be very clear about that. I do not believe it's the right option for anyone. With that being said, is this a conversation we can have? Can we be open and honest about this and say, wow, when you take away any kind of sense of security or hope of an afterlife in connection to how we act in this one, when you truly take that away, that it actually can end up leading to depression, as the article says. I didn't say that, the article said that. And therefore that depression leads further to suicide. And I've said it before many times on this channel. Part of the reasons atheists are so poor at communicating with me is because they are wanting to sell truth. But atheism is not established as truth. It's not, we can't say that that's truth. But what Christians sell, if anything, is hope. And hope, in the end, even if it's wrong, it still was hope the entire time. Take away hope from a person, the hope of an afterlife. You truly take that away. I think it only makes sense that it puts a person in a situation more likely to consider suicide and to be depressed and to act on that suicide. I already knew that suicide was more of an issue for men in general. But most atheists are men. I'm going to let you take it from here. I just want to have an honest conversation about this. This is a very serious topic, and I do not take it lightly. I take it very seriously. Is anyone willing to talk about this and say, yeah, it is a problem? Is anyone even willing to say, Nick, I'm an atheist, and I have to agree with you on this one? When you take away that hope, it can lead to depression, and it can lead to suicide. More so for atheists. Is any atheist willing to agree with me on that? That is a very serious situation. And it's not being talked about, is it? That's why I want to talk about it. Comments right here.